Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. I am Annette Jimenez Gleason, the Program Officer for Vitality for Rochester Area Community Foundation. Today, we have partnered with Rochester Fringe Festival to provide a session on what we hope will be useful information on the continued reopening of our venues and performing arts organizations and events. We have a packed schedule, so just a couple of quick housekeeping notes. I will post information about our speakers in the chat, and we will have a Q&A session after all our presentations. So please put your questions using the Q&A tool. And now we will hear from the heads of a few of our local arts organizations about their challenges of trying to plan large-scale events or group tours and the like as vaccines roll out and venues reopen and capacity limits continue to expand. So thank you, Erica from Rochester Fringe Festival, Hillary from Rochester Museum of Science Center in Orlando, from Puerto Rican Festival of Rochester for being with us today. And Erica, would you kick us off?
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for joining us. I think we will indeed get through this together. Just to bring you up to date as to where we are with Rochester Fringe Festival, we are obviously in a slightly different cycle than we've ever been before. Generally, by this point, we would have actually closed our submission period. We haven't even opened it yet because everything is changing on a weekly basis, although we do think that we see a light at the end of the tunnel. This year, we are focusing on what we can do outdoors safely and what we can do inside venues using some of the new technology that New York State is rolling out and some other event safety guidelines. We're excited for this year. We're excited to see some people in person finally. We will still have a digital component to our festival, but we are definitely going to push forward with some in-person events that will be done very safely. So thank you all for joining, and I will turn it over to Hillary, I think, is next.
Sure, and we have we've been asked to talk for a short amount of time, so I talk fast, and I apologize for that in advance. So as of Monday, museums get to go to 50% capacity, which is fantastic, except we haven't even seen demand at 33% in the museum where we've been for a while. For spring break, we had a couple days where we were at the capacity, but we haven't really reached that. So we're excited to welcome more people. We're excited that more people are getting vaccinated. I was asked if we're going to be using vaccine passports, and right now my answer is no, because we don't expect any change in behavior with our visitors. We still expect that the visitors will be wearing masks. We still expect that they will remain 6 feet apart, and we will be staffing accordingly and spacing accordingly throughout the museum, the planetarium, the electricity theater, the preschool, our camp programs, and things like that. Currently, we are open 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, but we have programs happening 5 days per week. Our preschool is open. The school that rents space from us, Genesee Community Charter School, is open 4 or 5 days a week. And we have a club program for kids that are doing their online learning here from the museum that is still going Wednesday and Friday. But the capacity growth is what's exciting for us to be able to do more with groups like Scouts and camps. And we have a few more seats that we can open up the planetarium next week. And the exciting thing is that we're noticing that more seniors are coming back. More seniors are looking for and excited about group and guided tours. And we believe that that is an issue of just more senior citizens getting vaccinated, which is really exciting. And as sort of that vaccination rolls out, and, you know, like I just hit my 2 weeks yesterday after my second shot, really excited about that. But we're not ready to sort of come all the way back and open everything up and be open. We do anticipate that the Museum and Science Center will be open 7 days a week in mid-June, which coincides with more people being vaccinated and also coincides with the break. So when kids are on break, we have more audience. So we're hoping that that is something that we have coming back. But again, we're not using vaccine passports. We're not thinking about that just yet. We're not asking people to do any of that work or to show a passport because we don't want them to change their behaviors just yet. Thanks, Erica.
Over to you, Orlando. Thank you,
All right.
Hillary.
Thank you, Erica. My name is Orlando Ortiz, and I'm the president of the Puerto Rican Festival. The Puerto Rican Festival is a 3-day cultural celebration. And in 2019, we actually celebrated our 50th anniversary, which we were very excited to celebrate. I'm so happy it was in 2019 and that we didn't celebrate our 50th in 2020. Otherwise, I would have been even more devastated. But, you know, obviously this year we want to continue celebrating, you know, the tradition here in Rochester. As I'm sure we'll discuss in today's program, you know, we, as event organizers, we face many, many challenges. And outside of the capacity restrictions, you know, the COVID-19 safety guidelines, and just kind of reimagining what our events will look like in 2021 for us specifically, and I'm sure Erica, you can agree with this, is, you know, we bring in a lot of artists from outside of Rochester to attend our events. So some of the challenges that presents in itself, you know, in bringing people from other parts of the U.S., including Puerto Rico, and other countries, like for us would be Dominican Republic, that we tend to bring a lot of our artists from, you know, what type of logistical challenges that presents in itself will be a little challenging for us. So we're thinking of what other ways we can continue having our celebration, maybe without that piece added to our event. We continue to pay close attention to state guidelines that are released frequently, and I'm sure, as Erica does, try to dissect what applies to events like ours, which is a little bit challenging for us to do. You know, in comparison to 2020, we are very optimistic about 2021 that we could execute, you know, some type of an event, and we're working through, you know, what logistically what that would look like. And while it may not be kind of the typical Puerto Rican festival that we're all accustomed to and growing up with, you know, we are committed to providing an opportunity for our families to celebrate our culture in a safe environment. I don't have a lot more details right now. We're kind of on a holding pattern until we can kind of get a little bit more guidance from the state. And I look forward to having, you know, continued conversations with some of you guys on this event. And thank you for having me.
Thank you, Orlando. Annette, I think we will turn it back over to you.
All right.
We'll turn our videos off.
So no previews yet on the location or timing?
Unfortunately, no. You know, we still, right now we're still working with Frontier Field as far as our location for the festival, but we do have other opportunities maybe later on in the year. Obviously, the later the better for our events, given the ever-changing state guidelines. So we're kind of not committing to anything yet, and you know, we'll see. But here shortly, probably in the May timeframe, we'll have to make a commitment so that we can, you know, plan out all the logistics that takes to put on an event like this.
Right. Yeah, so we can appreciate all that you guys are trying to figure out as you go along. So thank you so much for offering that information. And now we're going to hear about the new initiative that the state has rolled out called the Excelsior Pass. So we have members of the Empire State Development Team to talk to us about this new unique program that will help venues and organizations get back to expanding their opportunities or reopening them. So we will get them on in just 1 second. Okay, are you guys good to go?
And I think we're just waiting on Ross Levi, who will be with us.
Okay.
And whoever is presenting or sharing the screen, you're sharing the presentation mode, not the actual screen.
So can you tell us how a little bit about how the Excelsior Pass was developed?
Yeah.
And
We can get started. I
the
think
slides.
we're hoping Ross can join. I think he's there, but maybe having some trouble. Let's see. He may join us in a moment, but I can get started very briefly and then I'll hand it to him if he's able to join us. And we also have Luke Chard from our IT team who can walk you through the pass.
Sure.
Today, we were hoping to talk to you a little bit about an exciting sort of new development that the state is rolling out, that is the Excelsior Pass. This is a completely optional tool that will allow venues and other locations to verify proof of vaccine or test. We have Ross on joining now, so maybe I'll hand it to him as soon as he joins. But in the meantime, I think this is an exciting way to facilitate the reopening. I'm from Empire State Development along with Ross, and we see this as a really important tool, again, completely optional, but a helpful tool to facilitate the reopening as we move forward. As you know, vaccine and testing have been really key to the economic reopening for the state and has been a key part of our strategy as guidance begins to lift capacity restrictions. Today, as has been mentioned, we're doing 200,000 vaccines a day roughly, which we're really excited about. At the same time, we're still maintaining our nation-leading capacity for testing. This was key at the beginning of the pandemic, but has also been really critical as part of the reopening. We're doing roughly 200,000 tests a day. And we have, as part of the reopening, we've also honed in on rapid testing. The New York Forward Rapid Test Program is one way to facilitate and expand access to rapid tests where your results are valid for 6 hours. So you're able to get a rapid test before an event at these locations, as well as any other testing site. But if you do have a moment, take a look at newyork.gov/rapid test program to learn about this specific program that provides low cost access to rapid tests, and we are expanding statewide. To give you a little sense of where and why this matters, testing and proof vaccine are key to and are required under state guidance for several economic activities. This gives you a quick overview of the kind of economic activities where testing or proof of vaccination are required, as I'm sure many of you are familiar. So I'll walk through really briefly. Wedding receptions and catered events outside New York City can be up to 75% capacity with up to 150 people inside, contingent on testing or proof of vaccine above the social gathering limit, which I believe right now is at 100 people. So between 100 and 150 people for a wedding or catered event does require proof of vaccine or negative test. For event, arts, and entertainment venues, for large performance spaces, can open at 20% capacity, again, requiring proof of test or vaccine. For the smaller venues, it's up to 30% capacity with 100 people indoors or 200 people outdoors, and that does not require a test. However, if you want to increase capacity to 150 people indoors and 500 people outdoors, that is contingent on a negative test or vaccine. And then you get to the sports stadiums and the indoor arenas, the outdoor stadiums. This lists them out, but most of these do require proof of recent test or vaccine. These are changing, and this isn't an exhaustive list, but these are sort of the key guidelines right now. So then the question is, how does an individual store their test results or vaccine status? What's the easiest way for a business or venue to verify those results? And that's why we rolled out Excelsior Pass, thanks to the great work of Luke Chard and others on the state team who really have been working hard on developing a convenient, easy to use, safe, secure app. I'll give you a quick overview and then hand it over to Luke to walk through the more details. But in sum, this is a completely voluntary option. It's important to note that you will never be required to use this either as an individual or as a venue. You can use any sort of proof of vaccine or negative test. But what this does is makes it easy to use, facilitates entry to any venue or location. It's highly secure. It's built on, as noted, an IBM blockchain platform that ensures there's no exchange of information or storage of information. The little picture on the right here gives you a sense of how this works. On the left, you have the individual user who has downloaded their pass and to their Excelsior Pass app, and they have it available and are displaying it to, say, the venue. And on the right, you see the venue, which is has downloaded the Excelsior Scanner app, which is a different app, both easily available, free, and they have a scanner. All they have to do is scan the barcode, and it gives you a yes or no valid for entry. Just some key points to hit. Again, it's this blockchain technology from IBM that was developed specifically for this type of app. There's no private or sensitive information stored within the system. It does mean that if you are a venue scanning the app, you're not storing any information about that individual. You're just getting that check mark, valid or not valid. There's multi-language access, a help desk where you can reach out online or by phone, and multiple ways to use Excelsior Pass. As Luke will show you, you don't have to have a smartphone. That is one option, but you're also able to print this out, the barcode out, and display it to anyone using a scanner. It's also completely free for businesses and individuals. That means the individual scanner app or Excelsior Pass app is free for users to download, but so is a scanner for businesses to download. One point before I hand it over to Luke, I meant to mention this in going through the guidance, but when we're talking about proof of vaccine or test, what we're talking about is a PCR test, which are the more common tests that take a little bit of time to get your result. Typically, those are valid for 72 hours. And as the app will store that information and it will be valid 72 hours after you've received that test. Antigen tests, which are those rapid tests that we were talking about earlier, are valid for 6 hours. So you can get your results after you get your test, and those will be, and you can have it on your app, and those will be available for 6 hours. And then there's a vaccine, which currently is valid for 180 days, and that's just based on CDC guidance. It will change as CDC moves forward with additional information. With that, I think I covered sort of the top line, but Luke can really walk through the key user points. So Luke, I'll hand it over to you if that works for you.
Great, thank you, Noah. Yes, my name is Luke Chard, and my team led the user experience design of Excelsior Pass. And what that means is It's easy to use. We've tested it with both the old and the young, the tech literate and the less so, universally accessible. It's in quite a few different languages, and also is accessible to those with different impairments. So what I'd like to do is take you through 3 steps here. I'm going to walk you through a user journey. So what is it like to be the New York State resident user, the business user, and then I'm going to take you through an actual demo of what getting the pass looks like and what using the pass and scanning the pass looks like. So we're going to step into the shoes of 2 people here. One is Sarah, and she is a business owner intending to use the Excelsior Pass scanner app. And Michael, he's a New York State resident, and he's wanting to use the Excelsior Pass wallet app or the Excelsior Pass itself. Now, just one thing to mention, why is this concept so valuable? Well, New York State Department of Health actually is the steward of all vaccination data and test data that has ever happened in the state. So what Excelsior Pass does at a high level is it gives back to the New York State resident their own personal record for them to control and share or not share however they choose. So that's the power of Excelsior Pass. It's getting the data back to the data owner from Department of Health, who is the steward of that data. So let's take a walk in Michael's shoes first down at the bottom here. So Michael's received his vaccination, his first and second dose in his case, and he is made aware that he can go to epass.ny.gov to receive a digital proof of his vaccination. Now you might imagine Michael already has the CDC card that you may have seen, but the CDC card is very easily spoofable, fakeable, and it doesn't provide proof of vaccination. Of course, it's accepted as proof, but it doesn't provide verifiable proof, we could say. So Michael is very interested in going to a wedding. His daughter put off her wedding for a year because of COVID. So he's very excited to go to his own daughter's wedding. So he jumps right on to epass.ny.gov and he verifies his identity in 2 steps. The first step is he enters just a small amount of information that I'll show you shortly. And that allows us to find Michael's unique record in the DOH information systems. Now, we never pull that information. Michael's medical information or health records, vaccine records are never stored in Excelsior Pass. The only thing we're doing on epass.ny.gov is finding his record, making sure that Michael can receive an Excelsior Pass, and then we issue that Excelsior Pass to Michael. So Michael verifies his identity. Then he also answers a few challenge questions. And these are for us to make sure that we have the assurance that Michael is who he says he is. We ask him some questions that Michael would know and that other people would not know. And then Michael downloads the Excelsior Pass wallet app from the App Store, either iOS or Android. And as Noah mentioned, he doesn't even have to use an app. I'll show you in a moment how he could choose to go the paper route. But let's just say for this case, Michael's downloading the Excelsior Pass wallet app, and he adds his pass to his wallet. Similar to if you use Apple Wallet or Google Pay Wallet on your phones, it's stored right inside the app, and just at the touch of his app, he's able to display that wherever Michael might choose to do it. And it looks like you see in the lower right there, we'll zoom in a moment and show you more closely, but it's a QR code. It's a very high fidelity QR code. It holds a lot of information, a unique lookup key for Michael's pass to be validated. And then all that Michael has to do is at that point of entry into a venue, in his case, his daughter's wedding, he just needs to allow that pass to be scanned, and then he will be admitted into that venue that's following the reopening guidance. Now, Sarah is the catering and wedding coordinator. Her experience is actually quite a bit simpler. She downloads the Excelsior Pass scanner app. Now, it's a different app than Michael's using. And all the scanner app does is one thing and does it well. Sarah holds that up to anyone who is presenting their Excelsior Pass code to her. It will scan it, and then it will say whether that pass is valid or not. And then it also shows the person's name and date of birth, so she can match that up to an ID. Think of it very similar to an airline boarding pass. Your boarding pass is not good enough to get you onto the airplane. Of course, you need to show ID. Excelsior Pass is not a digital ID. It is a digital vaccine credential. Okay, we can go to the next slide. And here on slide number 8, I'm going to just walk you through how Michael could have, if he wasn't really a smartphone user, smartphone not required. Excelsior Pass is not an app. Excelsior Pass is a program that you can use an app. It's smartphone enabled, but you don't even have to use an app. Michael could have went to epass.ny.gov, even at his public library. My wife works at a public library, and I'm sure she's going to be helping some of her patrons get their Excelsior Passes. He could have verified his identity and then printed out his Excelsior Pass. There's a paper version, and he could have folded it right up into his wallet and taken that and unfolded it and have had it scanned at the entry into the facility. So what I'd like to do right now is take you through and show you how simple it is to get an Excelsior Pass. Now, any of you that have already received your final dose of vaccination, and it's 15 days after, 14 full days, so on the 15th day, you can receive Excelsior Pass, you would be able to do what I'm about to show you right now. So what I'm going to do is share my screen. And let me take you to epass.ny.gov. My father, he just turned 70. He was so excited to get his final dose of the vaccine and get his Excelsior Pass. And he told me, use him as the demo for every demo in the future. So I'm gonna walk you through getting my father's Excelsior Pass with his permission, of course. So this is epass.ny.gov, and if you go to this on a mobile phone or a laptop, the screen just sizes automatically right to whatever your device you're using. Up front, we show them the value proposition of using Excelsior Pass. Of course, if they're already here, they probably already understand the value proposition and what it can help them do. So I'm going to click Get Started. And right up front, we want to be very clear of what we're collecting, what we're doing with it, and how we're not even storing it. Because we're not storing any medical information, HIPAA does not even apply. We keep all the Department of Health information on their servers, and we only receive authorization to issue an Excelsior Pass. So I'm going to accept this, and we're going to get started. You'll only have to enter 4 pieces of information for us to achieve a unique match in the Department of Health records. So I'm going to type my father's name here. And he was born on January 3rd, 1951. And his zip code is 12182. And I'm going to continue. So that allowed us to match up Matthew's record. And now this is identity verification. So I'm not going to tell you the answers to these because these are the privileged information. But the next step is for someone to enter the date when they received the last dose of the vaccine, in what county were they vaccinated, and then which vaccine did they receive. And that allows us the level of identity assurance necessary for us to issue this Excelsior Pass to them. So I'm not going to click verify identity, but on the next screen would be your Excelsior Pass. I'm going to show that to you in a moment. Actually, I'm going to switch over to my phone and show it to you from there, what the next screen would look like. Okay, so I'm going to stop the share here. Might be a good opportunity to ask questions, maybe answer a couple, Noah, while I transition my devices here.
Yes, there was one question about someone whose pass was about to expire this month. What do they do after that? Do they re-register?
Right, great question. I think I can answer that one. When we started out, the pass was only valid for 30 days because CDC guidance had not gone beyond, they had not said what the efficacy was of the vaccine, the duration of the efficacy. That was subsequently moved to 60 days and now even 180 days, I believe. So that person would just need to go back to epass.ny.gov and regenerate their pass, and their new pass would be good for 180 days. Great question.
And do venues have to scan the pass, or they can just look at it on a person's phone, or they printed it out?
Great question. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start sharing from my phone here. I can answer the question by continuing the demo. So you should see my dog Morgan on the screen there. And what I'm going to do is open up and show you the 2 apps that I mentioned earlier. So we have the Wallet app, in the lower right underneath the wonderful I Love New York app. And Ross, I did not put that on there just for you. It's a permanent fixture on my phone. So the New York State Wallet app, this is the app that the New York State resident would use. And so the first experience I'm going to show you is loading a pass, an Excelsior Pass, into the wallet for use. And then we'll go into business mode with the scanner app, and I'll show you the validation. So these apps are freely available on both the iOS and Android stores. So anyone can go download the New York State Scanner app or the New York State Wallet app. The scanner app will require just a couple questions to register and just help us understand who is using it. But because no personal information is disclosed or transferred without someone showing their pass, this is really a voluntary basis on the part of New York State residents and businesses to use it also.
Okay. Luke, we do have to move on to our next speaker. I guess if you can quickly show the pass, and we appreciate all the information, and we have included a link to the website as well, so people can learn more.
I think I could give the 90-second summary here.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to add a pass. I'm going to click the button on the bottom. I'm going to scan a QR code here. And what I have on my desk is the pass that my father generated. And I'm just going to hold it up to the screen, and it loads it right into the wallet. And then it can be, you can tap on that pass and you can show it wherever you'd like. You could also add it to your Apple Wallet, as you can see there. What I'll do next is I'm going to open up the scanner app. This is the business side. And if I hold up Matthew's pass here, it scans it and says pass is valid, and just check it against an ID. I'm going to scan another pass, just show that the negative flow. This is one of my expired test passes. Okay, I'm going to scan that, and you can see it shows that pass is expired. So on the business side, the business doesn't have to worry. They just point and scan, and they receive all the verification much quicker than looking through all paperwork that might come from a lab or vaccine results or things like that. The app does all the heavy lifting for you.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You guys can hang on for the Q&A. I think there's a few more questions, but we do want to move on to our next speaker, Ortiz Zib. I think the Excelsior Pass will help live theater in particular. And his theater was one of the first to present a live event in New York City since the lockdown. So we look forward to hearing your experiences and your plans moving forward, Ortiz. So thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. So we actually did a show on April 2nd. We heard in the beginning of March that by April 2nd, live performance will be allowed in New York City. At that point, the announcement included the line that guidelines are forthcoming. That's all the guidelines we had when we decided to do a show. We figured the guidelines wouldn't come for a while, and indeed they came finally, I believe, on April 1st. So we decided we had to create our own guidelines to make sure that whatever the guidelines that came out later, we would be within them. So we decided everybody would be vaccinated. Everybody in the space, we hired a vaccinated tech person, vaccinated front of house people. The performer was already vaccinated, and we required all the audience members to be vaccinated. We had a show with 22 audience members in the theater. And we also streamed the show out. We sold a Broadway house worth of tickets to that show in our little 22-seat space because we were able to sell almost 600 seats or views to people online. We turned the camera on a half hour before the show, just like we opened the house a half hour before the show. And people watching the stream online were able to see people coming into the theater, taking off their coats, looking at their programs, hear the murmur of the people, and the folks watching online loved being part of the experience like that, actually having that walking into the theater experience. We created a little video to send people. Should I play that? It's about 2 minutes, or should I skip the video? What do you think?
Do you have a link to it?
I do. I'll put the link in the chat. In a little bit. It's just like an airplane style video, safety instructions. Here's how you come in, here's how you leave. And we had a wonderful night. Audiences had a wonderful night, and we're hoping for a pretty full May of programming with tiny little houses and hopefully a lot of people watching online. And that's our plan as we move forward. We're allowed 33% in the theater, but we can't fit 33% in the theater because of social distancing. So that's the number that currently limits us. Even if they move it from 33 to 50%, we still won't be able to fit more than 28 people in the theater. I'm thinking that social distancing in the theater will come down to 3 feet from 6 feet at some point this summer, like it has with the schools, like it is all over Europe and the rest of the world. But we'll see. It's all a guessing game. Hoping to stay on top of it.
And did you want to speak? And you were talking earlier about talking to your European colleagues about the difference with their experiences in here.
We are very, it sounds weird to say it after the last year, but we're very fortunate in this country with the level of vaccination that we're reaching so quickly. For us, this Excelsior Pass is of course, this is great. This is helpful. This will help us open. But our colleagues in Europe, I talked to one person who was fighting against these kinds of vaccination passes in their country. And I thought, why would you? This is great. This makes things easy. This means we won't kill people. And he said, if they had to limit it to only vaccinated people in their country, they would be limiting their audience to people over the age of 85. And here we now we can vaccinate everybody over the age of 16. We're hitting, double-digit vaccinations. We're in the 20s already for people who are past 2 weeks past their second shot. And by the time we get into the summer, we're going to hit 40s, 50s, 60s pretty quickly. We're going to change our vaccinated only policy in time, but right now we're keeping it simple. Our main goal is to make the audience feel safe coming back and the artists feel safe coming back. Broadway and commercial theater, they're not opening for a while. It's our job as smaller theaters in New York, the only ones that are really currently operating, to get the audience used to coming back to the theater and feeling comfortable doing it. So that's what we're doing.
Great. Some room for optimism, which is good. That we'll get back. So thank you so much for sharing your experiences.
Pleasure. Thank you.
And now we will turn it over. Lastly, we are honored to have national safety expert Steve Adelman with us. He's the lead author on a Safety Alliance guide that was published last year. I will attach a link to that. Without further ado, Steve, thanks so much for being with us today and sharing your expertise.
Well, thanks very much, Annette. Hi, everyone. Greetings from Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's sunny, it's warm. There is literally a man climbing on a ladder right outside my balcony right now. And if you would listen to our governor, the pandemic is over. So whatever you think about where you are right now, you could be, so I'm putting on my Event Safety Alliance face covering. You should enjoy the Excelsior Pass, which looks great. And when I go visit my parents in Westchester County next month, they're going to show me theirs. But as for Arizona, the Cactus Pass, such as it is take that face covering and throw it away, because here we don't have anything. In fact, you should always follow the changes in guidance, because as of yesterday here in Arizona, face covering mandates have all been lifted because, again, the pandemic is over here. So what I'm going to talk about is a situation that makes a little more sense, yours, and what you can do to mitigate the risk as you reopen more, push the door open gently like Ortiz is doing, which is fantastic. Kick the door wide open, kick it off the hinges, as I hear some people are thinking about doing. There are all sorts of options, depending on where the state guidance is at any given moment. It just bears watching. So now I'm going to share my screen through the magic of modern technology. There we go. Slideshow, please. Slideshow, please. Yes, from the beginning. Where else would we start? All right. The very near future of live events. Well, I like this picture. This was taken at Salt River Fields during spring training, about 3 miles south of where I'm sitting right now. And I like this picture because it shows you the variety of compliance, what people think of when they think, oh, there's a mask requirement. Because when this picture was taken a few weeks ago, there still was one here. Now our governor, Ice Cream Scooper, which is what he used to be before he became governor, has decided no masks at all. So, you know, the guy wearing the White Sox jersey with his face covering under his chin, yeah, he's fully compliant with the new executive order that we have. And you can see, maybe this is a gender comment, maybe not, but at least I can observe that the women in this picture seem to understand what to do with a face covering, how to wear it above the nose, under the chin, both of them at the same time. The guys, not so much. Guy wearing the Cardinals jersey, I guess he's okay because he's holding a beer. But we know how that goes when somebody starts holding food or a drink. Yeah, the face covering seems to have a weird gravitational force and just stays down. As for Mr. White Sox, yeah, I don't know what he's doing. So that's the world that we're living in right now. And personally, I find it kind of upsetting because, well, I'm a health and safety guy. So here's just a couple of things about me. Why should I listen to this guy? He seems rather caffeinated and I don't know who he is. Well, here's who I am. I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer in Arizona, among other states, and I practice throughout North America because I deal with risk and safety at live events. And since second week of March last year, I've pretty much been doing nothing but COVID-19 stuff. Gotta tell you, I'm really tired of it. What I greatly prefer to do is things with the Event Safety Alliance. I'm vice president of ESA, and I'm the principal author of this useful treatise. It's available to you for free online. It's a bit dated now, but we have it in roughly a dozen languages. I don't know what your native tongue is, but we probably have it for you. We did a 6-month update. We're about to release another update, which we are creating in consultation with CDC. So we finally have gotten the smartest of the smart kids on board with us, and that's good. And it won't be a surprise to you that the new guidance is pretty basic. When we can finally stop thinking about COVID and reopen to more than 22 people, then you'll probably want to download this free guidance. And happily, I'm the principal author of this, so I can vouch for it. It's good, it's clear, and it makes sense no matter what your specific circumstances are. It is the prevailing guidance for crowd management when there are crowds. Remember crowds, people in the same place? Remember crowds? There is guidance for dealing with crowds, managing crowds, and that's a free download to you as well. All right, so reopening options. Here's the good part. Here's the stuff that you actually want to know about. Enough about me. Let's talk about options. Well, the first thing that we all know is we all know what to do. We all know. I'm not the only person, I'm confident, who rolls out of bed in the morning muttering through my halitosis, social distancing, face covering, hand washing. You know these things. Whether there's just, one run-on word with no spaces, or maybe you insert dashes between social distancing and face covering and hand washing. However you say it, you know it. Everyone else does too. Mr. White Sox wearing his face covering like a goddamn chin strap, he knows what to do. He's just not doing it. So that's the universe that we are reopening into. And it's great to have things like the Excelsior Pass, because that is part of the solution to how to bring crowds, small to start, larger as we go along, how to bring crowds back into confined spaces, whether those confined spaces are outdoors or later indoors. So here's a model for you. I like to give people a conceptual framework before I give them actual details, because the conceptual framework is a way of remembering what you should do. Even if you forget the specifics of what you should do, you can kind of figure it out. So here is an actual thing. You can look up the Swiss cheese model of risk management online. Don't do it now. You're listening to me. You're learning things from a lawyer. But when I'm done, you can Google Swiss cheese model of risk management. Or if you have carpal tunnel syndrome, just type in James Reason, because James Reason is the name of the guy who came up with the Swiss cheese model of risk management. And although my name is Adelman, and that means nobleman, which I think is nice, James Reason, that's a name that has real humph, you know, and if I were coming up with a risk management theory, I'd want to be called Reason. Anyway, here it is. So take a block of Swiss cheese, a block, slice it up, rotate the slices. You know what Swiss cheese is, it's got lots of holes through it. The idea that James Reason came up with is that risk is something that seeks holes. It goes through the cheese. And eventually, although it may go through a hole or two holes, it will hit cheese. Yes, we will be saved by cheese in the James Reason Swiss cheese model of risk management. We'll be saved by cheese. What does that mean? It means that there are different types of risk mitigation tools available in most situations. And I assure you, the next slide is a number of risk mitigation tools available in this situation, COVID-19. So applying that in general terms first, the Swiss cheese model postulates there are engineering controls. Well, what's that mean, Steve? Well, engineering controls generally mean social distancing in this context. So Erez has, you know, a theater. He could go up to 30% capacity in theory, but he can't because he has to maintain the engineering control of social distance. Maybe if there was, I don't know, a family of 6, he could do a pod and increase capacity that way. But the point is, the engineering control of maintaining social distancing is going to limit capacity for indoor spaces. What else? Administrative controls. Well, testing. Yes, you've already heard about the Excelsior Pass. I got to tell you, I have pass envy. I've been vaccinated since late February. Arizona has done everything wrong in terms of the pandemic, except our vaccine rollout has been exemplary. It's been magnificent. So I can move freely about the country. I fly without a whole lot of hesitation, but I don't go into my supermarket locally without much hesitation because, yeah, people are not getting vaccinated in large enough numbers where I am. Vaccine hesitancy, we'll use the polite term, is a thing here. Testing is also not so widespread, so that's annoying. So anyway, those are behavioral controls, and then administrative controls, and then behavioral controls are face coverings. Again, that's a better situation in New York than it is where I'm located, because your governor, with his issues, at least still believes in face coverings. If you prefer lactose intolerant analogies, there is the belt and suspenders approach. I'm a fan, I'm a fan of that one. And the belt and suspenders approach is simply another way of saying the same thing. You want to use multiple means of mitigating risk because to err is human. We know that measures will fail. For every 2 women who know how to wear a face covering properly, there's a guy wearing a Cardinals jersey holding a beer who can't be bothered, and there's a guy wearing a White Sox sweatshirt who maybe just doesn't understand or doesn't give a crap about anybody except himself. So I promised you after the framework, I would give you some details. Here are the details. And you don't have to take a screenshot of this, although it's not a bad idea, because I'm going to give Erica these slides right after we're finished, and she can post them for anybody who wants them, because there's no magic here. So I have a list of risk mitigation options in order of effectiveness. This is the list that I give to my own clients who are throughout North America, including quite close to you, wherever you're located. And I'm pretty confident that these are right. Maybe you'll shift the order one place or so, but I'm pretty sure that generally speaking, this is right. So risk mitigation options. Well, first and foremost, require proof of vaccination. You say, well, we have the Excelsior Pass and we can do that, but are we authorized to do that? Well, yes, you are. It's going to take some courage, but I've given 2 logos on the, the side of the screen here. Have I? I think I have. Yes, there's one. So this is the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. If you go to the link for them, which I think Eric is going to put into the chat, you will see that they have quite robust guidance. It's actually not guidance at all. It's requirements. Yes, you can require people to show proof of vaccination. Is that something that I can do, Steve? Doesn't HIPAA prevent me from doing? No, HIPAA has nothing to do with this. No shoes, no shirt, no service. No proof of vaccine, no service. No face covering, no service. No evidence of a negative PCR test within 72 hours before somebody walks up to the point of ingress, no service. Are these things allowed? Hell yes, they're allowed in every state. Maybe not so much in Florida, but that's not your problem, is it? Because you're in a more enlightened state. And your governor, with his issues, is at least not trying to use emergency authority to preclude not only public entities, but also private ones from doing the first most effective way of mitigating the risk of getting people infected. So that's good. So number 1, require proof of vaccination. And the Excelsior Pass is a fine way of doing that. And there are other ways as well. But the point is, it works. Number 2, there are genuinely, I suppose, some people who have legitimate health reasons that they can't get vaccinated. I don't know what those are. I think mostly it's vaccine hesitancy, but who am I to judge? So let's just say, for the sake of argument, that somebody has a real reason and not, excessive consumption of Fox News or OAN or something. You can still require them to submit proof of a negative PCR test, PCR, polymerase chain reaction. The PCR test is the one that does take a little longer. You heard that before, and that's true. It takes between 48, 72 hours, depending on labs and the speed at which you can get an appointment. But the point is, the PCR test has by far the highest test validity. It's the most accurate by a country mile. So PCR tests are the gold standard of testing that's available in the United States and really anywhere. And so I advise my clients, require proof of vaccination, full stop. And if somebody has a reason that they can't, not won't, but can't get vaccinated, let them raise that issue. And then, as a second choice, require proof of a negative PCR test. It's free. It's free. There's no reason, none, that somebody can't get a PCR test. It's free under the Federal CARES Act passed last year. So you live in civilization or near civilization, anyone can get a free PCR test. So between options 1 and 2, to me, those are absolute requirements with no exceptions. And I prefer both, but either is going to give you a high degree of confidence that no one's walking into your venue carrying the coronavirus. All right, 3, face covering, except when eating or drinking. Well, now we're getting into the stuff that's more challenging because, as I showed you in the very first slide, even people who can be compelled to wear their face coverings upon ingress, they're gonna take them down to eat or drink, and then gravity will work its wicked ways and the face coverings won't go back. Don't believe me? Go into the world and you will see for yourselves, people just seem to have their own forms of gravity, and I don't understand it. It drives me berserk. So face coverings, while really important, are much less reliable because, well, people suck. And I think I'm not speaking out of turn because I'm a person and I go to the little fitness center where I live and I'm constantly amazed and aggravated that people who ostensibly care about their health enough to work out in a gym don't care about their health enough to wear a face covering. So choice 3 is a distant third choice after 1 and 2. 4, hold outdoor events. Well, Any of you lucky enough to have outdoor space to work with, you know that the principal means of transmission of coronavirus is aerosolized droplets. And so having moving air around you is the great advantage of outdoor spaces to indoor spaces. Okay, well, what if you don't have an outdoor space to work with? Well, if you have doors and windows in your indoor space, use them. And that's a challenge because you don't want to jeopardize security. So, you're going to have to be judicious about opening doors or windows, and maybe you don't have one anyway. Maybe you have a black box theater and that's simply not an option. So in that case, you're going to have to maximize airflow however you can, and it may require a call to your local HVAC guy to see what options are available within your price range when you've got 20 some odd patrons coming in. But, good on you, Eras, for having 600 plus patrons paying their way in virtually. That's clearly a way to, maximize the economics of our current situation. All right, we're halfway through our list. It gets worse, so I'm going to get faster. 6, kill seats. Well, you don't want to do that, but you know that you have to for social distancing. So there's no rocket science there. Remember, we roll out of bed, social distancing, face covering, hand washing. Yeah, you know social distancing by now. 7, have everyone submit to a rapid test. Well, it's neat that you can get one that's valid for the next 6 hours, but rapid tests have a much lower test validity than the PCR test, polymerase chain reaction. Rapid tests cost money. They're not covered by the Federal CARES Act, which means they're not especially practical for anybody except production people. You're not going to do it for your patrons because it's going to overwhelm the income that you might have coming in. So rapid tests, not a great solution, especially since there are vaccines available for everybody who's 16 and over. I keep coming back to that because it's so stinking obvious. So we're on 7, yes. 8, now we're into health theater. 8, you can do a thermal scan at the point of ingress. You can, but it is mere health theater. Why? Because something like 40% of people who are actually infected with coronavirus will never show symptoms. They won't know that they're sick. They won't know it, they won't feel it, they won't show it. And besides, some people, a lot of people maybe, don't have a baseline temperature of 98.6. I don't, I'm 97 point something, which means not only do I screw up the thermal scan when I walk in, but for me, a fever isn't 100.4. So thermal scan's not very useful. All right, we're on 9. Answering health survey questions. Have you been around someone who's been, infected? Well, they're not going to know, and probably you're not either. So that's not very useful. It is also mere health theater. At least it doesn't cost you $79 at CVS to buy a thermal scanner. You can just put a piece of paper on a clipboard or use your cell phone. And then there's option number 10, which is kind of the Cactus Plan. So the Cactus Plan is, oh, the hell with it, the pandemic's over. You can pretend the pandemic is over. I don't recommend that one. That's the least effective risk mitigation option. So you have solutions available. You can Google the South Beach Wine and Food Festival. I also heartily recommend LA County Public Health has excellent, robust requirements, not just guidance, requirements. So, the spectrum from Arizona, pandemic's over, versus LA County, we're taking this extremely seriously, is really, it's a big spectrum, and New York is someplace closer to LA County, which is great. It's where you want to be. So there are resources that you can use, not just the Event Safety Alliance, my organization, and we're going to have guidance available, and I'm sure Erica will make that available in a few days when it's finalized. But there is guidance out there, and you need it because no rule that you can establish, kind of like Mr. White Sox, no rule is self-enforcing. Calvin's mom screams, don't run in the house, but Calvin knows the wisdom of Calvin. Calvin knows everything requires enforcement. Whatever you do may work for you. As for me, I wear a bright yellow fez that says safety monitor. That's how I enforce rules. And when people see this fez bobbing around, face coverings seem to defy gravity for a little while. Whatever you do that works for you is good, but the point is you have to make choices about risk mitigation, and then you have to enforce them. making good decisions and not enforcing them isn't enough, and making bad decisions, well, that's just crappy. So don't do that. So there's my lightning round. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And yeah, I suspect we have questions or comments or rants.
We have a question, Steve. I know the answer to this, but I think people would probably prefer to hear it from you. Can organizations enforce that their volunteers and employees are vaccinated?
Yes. Next question.
Okay. Before we get to the next question, it's 1 o'clock. So I want to say thank you to all who attended. We had a great number of people who were with us today. So if you have to sign off, thank you for being here today. If you can stay, we'll get to some more questions. All right, next question.
If you have questions, please place them in the chat. And I've got one here. Another one, Steve, I'm gonna throw this to you. Is there some kind of mysterious process where it's okay to remove your mask while eating and drinking, but at all other times when around people, face coverings are required?
Is there a mysterious process to get people to do that? To get people to put their mask back on?
I think the question really refers to maybe an idea or a belief that COVID can't be transmitted while eating and drinking.
Oh no, that's stupid. Sorry, I have no filter when I talk about this. You can tell that I'm just tired of talking about COVID and answering insane questions. No, your question's not insane at all. No, obviously there is no lower risk of transmission of someone else's aerosolized droplets, no lower risk of ingesting someone else's aerosolized droplets or transmitting them outward to other people when you're eating or drinking. If you really want to be compassionate when you're drinking, use a straw, preferably not one made out of plastic. When you're eating, well, don't. I'm a grazer, but I don't eat in public places these days because, well, I'm surrounded by knuckleheads. Even though you're in New York where there are fewer knuckleheads per capita, the risk of transmission and ingesting other people's bad germs is 100% when you're not wearing a face covering.
Eris, we have a couple questions for you. You're still with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. One is, do you require mask wearing even though audience is vaccinated? And do vaccinated performers have to space by 6 feet currently?
Yes. Our goal for the time being is to make people comfortable being in a theater. So we're doing like the most that we could possibly do to make people feel comfortable. So everybody sitting there is masked, even though everybody sitting there is vaccinated and has been asked the theater questions like the proximity to other people, and we do the guns. Like the whole point is to make people feel comfortable and know that they, to the best of our human ability, will not catch this thing inside the theater. The performers, at this point, we've only done one-person shows. We will in May have some performances that have up to 4 people performing, not on stage at a time, or 3 people on stage at a time, and they will be spaced. And the performers are at least 12 feet away from the most forward seating masked audience member.
Great. And there's some questions for our state folks, Ross or Noah, if you're still there.
Yes.
People are asking about New York residents who live out of state for part of the year. They can just go online and put in their information and get the app. Also for venues, for scanning, can they just use the camera on their phone, or is there a special scanner app?
I can take those. First, that's a really good point to raise about folks who are from out of state. Currently, the app will only be able to access vaccine status or test status for those who are vaccinated or tested in New York. We are working through that. The team's in touch with especially neighboring states, but other states to identify ways to share data so that of course, privately and just to be able to identify if you've been vaccinated in other states, but that is still in development. Of course, as I've said before, that's completely optional. If someone from out of state shows up and doesn't have, and was vaccinated out of state, they can just show proof of that vaccination in some other form. And then for the scanner pass, you can find that online on Apple or Android. Now anyone can download it, and you can use all it does is use your phone camera for the scan.
And do you know how many organizations or venues are already using the Excelsior Pass yet?
We don't track specific users, but we've been seeing uptake all across the state, and we're also ESC. We've been in touch with some particular venues, some larger ones as well as smaller ones. We're in the New York City area. We're in touch with MSG and the Times Union Center in Albany. We've been in touch with by using it, but also smaller venues across the state have been, which is really exciting for us.
And this is a good one. What about the folks that participated in a vaccine trial? Can they still?
Great question. Right now, the pass only EUA approved vaccines work with the pass. If you were participated in a trial with a vaccine that currently has EUA, that it wasn't necessarily reported to the state at the time, so we may not have it, but we're still working through that. And if you were in a trial where with something like AstraZeneca, unfortunately right now that does not register in the pass.
I will just jump in here. I'm in the Pfizer trial.
Okay.
And I was vaccinated last summer, so it doesn't work because I'm over 180 days, but hopefully that will all get ironed out.
Exactly. And I'm hoping that 180 days changes over time as we gather more data from the CDC. So.
Steve, we've got a question for you. Can you give some brief guidance on singing in groups?
Yes. This won't be my guidance, it's CDC guidance, because you don't want science guidance from a lawyer. CDC has, basically, they are citing studies done before the pandemic that show that singers expel aerosolized droplets much farther than 6 feet, which is pretty intuitive. It's the same thing with shouting and singing. It's why, if you're a soccer fan like me, standing in the supporter section, chanting is not a good idea. There are things called singers' masks, another thing to Google. And realistically, what I'm hearing from my friends who represent artists or who are bringing artists on tour, they're having the other non-singing performers wear face coverings. Well, everybody wears a face covering backstage. When they take the stage, all of the non-singing performers either keep their face covering on, or if they just don't like the look, they take them off at that point, but maintain some distance from each other. Singers, yeah, they're not wearing face coverings, and I just think that's not a realistic ask. The science doesn't support that not being a realistic ask, but I just think from an artistic standpoint, there's not going to be an artist who feels comfortable singing in full voice who's wearing a face covering. You're not going to get that.
And there was another.
No, I was just going to say thank you.
One more about what does the pass guard against, I guess there have been people forging vaccination cards. Does the pass help guard against those kinds of incidents?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the benefits of the pass. And I know Luke, who was on the IT team, who gave you the demo, he had to jump, but he was very involved in ensuring the security of it. The way the app works is it really just pulls from the data that's been submitted to the state at your vaccine administration site. So it's pulling straight from the source. And again, it's just identifying that your record is in there. It's not pulling that information. It's not sharing that information with anyone.
Okay. I think we're all set. Unless there's any other questions, Erica?
No, I don't have any others, but thank you all for joining us today. It's so exciting to think about actually getting back in front of live performers, to have live performers and live audiences together in the same room or at least same area.
Yes, this is definitely making us all feel more hopeful about what's coming down the road. Hopefully lots more live events, and thank you all for being here and sharing all your knowledge and information. We really appreciate it. Apologies to Luke for having to cut off the demo, but hopefully people can find that further information online. They can also contact us if they have questions, and we can connect you with the Empire State staff. So thank you all for being here. Have a great afternoon, and thanks to all our panelists.